When it comes to Sri Lanka, I'm not trying to start a minority Tamil uprising. What I'd like to see is the Sinhala spring. Now, my family is from Jaffna, but my amma was raised in Kandy. And hearing her speak Sinhalese with Shanti Mami is as sweet as hearing her use Tamil to pesi me. While he lived, my uncle was an ardent fan of separatism. And in remembering him, some of the nicest conversations have been with one of his childhood best friends, a man who is a Jaffna Muslim. So getting me to back the concept of a united Sri Lanka is easy, because my heart already wants to believe. There is nothing I would like better than for our generation to throw a Baila beach party. We'll spend a day on the sand, sipping that arak and toddy, dancing our hearts away under a Sarangani-style sunset. Which is why I gotta let you know, if you really want to build a future with me, you have to stop bashing the LTTE. Allow me to play my version of history. We shared this island for centuries, which is why it drives me crazy when you call me Indian. Yes, I am Tamil, but I am not the same as them. And I have mad love for my continental counterparts, but seriously, have you heard them speak? My family does not come from the Kolaveri tree. We are Yarpanam, Tirukonamalai, Mattakalapu, Matale, Nigambo, Korambu, Hatton, Vavanya, Ampara, Mannar, Puttalam, and Silabam. We are Ilangai, born and bred. As a kid learning Hinduism, my allegiance was never to Ram. It was to the dude with 10 heads. And 1956 sticks out as the time when you first separated us, with your unfortunate penchant for Sinhala only. And I remember 1958 as the year my grandfather was ripped from a train. You took bats to his brain and left him in a roadside ditch for dead. And satyagraha after satyagraha, we led our people through nonviolent protest, not wanting our own state, but wanting to own our dignity. And where was your passion for unity then? Was it in the tips of your machetes? In Polonnaruwa, Mattakalapu, Galloya? And I reject the notion that the Vattukota resolution was a nationalistic call for secession. We didn't decide to secede. You told us to leave. And in 1981, you burned our library. Twice. Me and my children will never get to read what was written on the palmyra leaves of our nation's history.
Sinhala Spring, the context in which you wrote it, and I mean, why did you actually write that piece?
I was having a conversation with a really good friend of mine, and she and I are very much on the same platform in terms of how we would like to see people treated in this country with safety and freedom and equality. But I found during that conversation that we had very different contexts for the way in which certain issues have arisen and the struggle, etc. And so I kind of wrote that piece. It's almost as a love letter to, I want to say it's almost like a love letter to the Sinhalese, you know, like hear me and understand where I feel some of this history comes from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Diaspora is very diverse, and the more sort of hardline elements, how did they react to that? Your sort of appeal to the Sinhalese community sort of helped with, I mean, the situation the Tamils were facing. Yeah. How did they sort of react to that? Was there any sort of negative or positive?
I didn't receive any particular negative feedback on the piece, and that's not because it may not be out there, just because people haven't communicated it to me.
Okay.
Yeah, not so much.
You've played a lot of roles in film, which also include roles in popular TV series like CSI New York and Bones as well.
Yeah.
And now you've recently written and executively produced your very own first short film, 3 Puffs of Gold.
Yeah.
So in the film, you are kind of looking at the situation of sort of the impact maintaining silence has on a victim of sexual violence, a victim of date rape. are you looking particularly at sexual assault, or is it violence in general? Could you talk to us a little bit about
I mean, it's not even necessarily violence in general, but anything that you maintain silence about, you know, because it becomes this catch-22 of people maintain silence because they are afraid that nobody will hear them. But if you maintain silence, then how can your community support you? So it becomes a real catch-22 of you have to be willing to speak out, and the community has to be willing to step up and be with you through whatever it is that you might be going through.
Okay, so can you talk to us a little bit about the film per se? How is it coming out of?
It's been really exciting and good. It's my first time behind the camera, so the learning curve has obviously been very steep. I am hoping, we've set so many deadlines already and then broken those deadlines, so I'm hoping that we're maybe a month away now from just finishing it out. But it's been really good. I have a really wonderful producing partner who's also my director, so it's been nice working on it all together.
Okay. Meena, a little bit about your sort of visits to Sri Lanka. Has it always, now you tend to visit almost every year, has it always been this frequent, or why did you start visiting so regularly?
So we came as a child. I must have come 5 times or so up until 2004. And after that I didn't come again until 2010. And since then I have been taking the initiative to come every year. Because my main concern is, you know, it's easy to have roots with your parents, or, you know, associate your parents with your roots. But I think that really it's important for my generation to come in and establish our own roots, because at the end of the day, the relationships here are what matter, and having relationships with people here is really important, as opposed to hearing it from various different news sources or just continuing to hear stories from our parents. I think it's important to really integrate and be a part of the community here.
Okay. So do the others in your generation also feel like that? Have you come across other individuals who want to sort of reconnect?
I think so. I mean, I think that regardless of political leanings, I think that almost all of the people I know in my generation have a desire to stay connected to the people here.
Okay. So, and you've also traveled up to the north as well, and in 2010 and now even this year I think you've gone to Meena.
Yeah.
So have you seen, like, what has your initial sort of reaction been to the situation there? Have you seen any improvements, any developments?
I think that what I would say regarding that is that when people for an extended period of time have had their basic needs not met, and these are needs not just in terms of education and food, but also in freedom and peace of mind, they begin to compromise what they think they're worth, or they begin to compromise what they think they are willing to ask for or capable of achieving. And that has long-term effects. They essentially end up lowering their standards and lowering certain expectations. And so I have a lot of concern for the prolonged effect of this kind of mentality.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Meena has one last question. Yeah. In terms of the role of the diaspora, you yourself are part of the Sri Lankan diaspora, yeah. And there's been a lot of debate about how much they should be actually involved in the post-war recovery. It should be only economic or just political. What do you see it as? Do you think they have a role? If so, what sort of role should they play?
I think they have a huge role. I think that, I mean, I've talked to different people here, and I think that it's important to remember that the diaspora is diverse, and it's not just one entity, you know what I mean, with one specific opinion. I think it's very fair to say that the diaspora is invested in an equitable political solution in the country. A lot of the criticism that I've heard is that the diaspora is not doing enough on the ground and is not kind of economically investing enough, or that they're not aware of the realities. And what I feel about that is that the diaspora wants to connect, and people there in my generation or the older generation want to stay connected and want to be of genuine support to the people here. But it's hard to know who to trust, and it's hard to know where to send your money, you know, especially because we're a culture that's built on relationships, a trust that's built over a long period of time, that's began in childhood and that continues on. So people want to stay connected and people want to be of economic support, but I think it's hard for them to know where to put their money.